So what's actually going wrong with Jamie Gittens? Chelsea fans are starting to feel a bit concerned. He's gone from being seen as that hyped 52 mil long-term superstar to hopeless and raw in the space of a few games. It brings up Chelsea fans' long-term questions based on patterns they've been clocking. Is Jamie Gittens another potential example of the club's failure to prioritise youth for the future over signing instant quality for the team right now? There's a lot I want to discuss and get down to, so let's have this conversation. Gittens is the latest player, driving engagement on socials now for all the wrong reasons. After his latest cameo performance against Benfica, he's currently under the spotlight from Chelsea fans. He's currently under close scrutiny. And I can't help but get this feeling that Gittens is getting punished or becoming that early victim of the growing sense of apathy and impatience from Chelsea fans surrounding this project. We've been waiting for years now to see this project really come to life. And it only really feels like this is the season where Clearlake and the new ownership have finally constructed a squad in their image, and we're 4 seasons deep now. Chelsea fans haven't been impressed by his end products, his youthful inexperience, but the lack of confidence in his game as well. And it seems like his price tag is working against him quite unfairly, in my opinion, because fans have seen millions of players trying to make it work down the left-hand side in particular. Look at players like Mudryk, Noni, Felix, Sancho. The list goes on. And it feels like any player that isn't an immediate hit-fire success straight off the bat just will get the harshest criticisms instantly. But for myself, the apathy is coming from fans getting tired of these transfer palazzas. You're constantly seeing new players coming in, coming out every single window. And what is the net utility behind the quality we are seeing on the field? So will Gittens become the latest victim behind this recruitment strategy? I want to have a conversation here because I believe we haven't seen everything from Gittens. But I think to kind of get behind that belief, you have to kind of understand him a bit more and understand his story and journey behind what makes Gittens who he is. Now, I'm not going to take it all the way back from times where he was originally part of our academy as a kid, then he left to go to Reading, and then that's when he met Joe Shields, and that's when this whole long-term relationship between Gittens and Shields and their dynamic really took place. But I'm going to focus on last season, the 24-25 season, the season which put Gittens on the map as he was lurking in the shadows over the years at Dortmund behind your Bellinghams, your Sanchos, and top players they possess. But a reality we have to accept is that we did sign Gittens under difficult circumstances. He started the 24-25 season on fire, absolute fire, and the stats reflect that. Last season, he had 49 games for Dortmund. He scored 12 goals and got 5 assists during that time. But on closer examination, let's look at the first half of the season and compare the second half. In the first half of the season, he got around 27 appearances, 5 were as substitutes, and he scored 9 goals and he got 4 assists, having 4 goal contributions in the Champions League alone. But in the second half of the season, it tells a completely different story, as he recorded only 17 starts. But from those starts, 7 were as a substitute, and his stats were 3 goals and 0 assists, so his output completely decreased. But why exactly was that? Well, let's look at how he was used under Nuri Sahin. Under Sahin, Dortmund were kind of exposed, they were kind of open. They were exciting. They made things happen. And this is where Gittens really shined, because under Sahin, he was tasked with having full creative and offensive license to play his game. The team would make up for Gittens' deficiencies. Why? Because they wanted him to focus on doing what he does best, attacking his man, driving his team up the field, and performing end products with his finishing and his final decision-making. And Gittens definitely benefited from that quite a lot, putting in some special performances in the Champions League and in the league as well. But when Sahin left and was replaced by Niko Kovac, well, things were a little bit different. And Gittens was thrust into an unfamiliar tactical role as Kovac introduced a wing-back system. Kovac attacked in different ways. And this is where some of the deficiencies in Gittens' game started to expose himself a little bit. And they came in the form of how he combines with the rest of his team. They came in the form of his defensive output in terms of how he presses and how he drags back. They came in the form of how he plays touch and go to combine and link up. Now, he wasn't just tasked with being the kid that was allowed to do anything he wants when he's carrying the ball. Now he had to play and operate in a more cohesive and unified system. What didn't really help was not having the full trust of the manager. During a time where his relationship at Borussia Dortmund was starting to kind of fall down a bit. And this is where the problem really arises, because Jamie Gittens, at this current stage of his development, is fully about needing the confidence to perform. When he feels that confidence in his game in the system, confidence from the manager, from his teammates, you see the Gittens at the first half of the 24-25 season. But once all those ingredients are expired and out the window, when they're in the bin, composting up, this is where you see the elements where he still has to grow and still has to improve. So now you're signing for Chelsea. The end of your season at Dortmund didn't end great. Your output dropped, your confidence drops. You've now not had the opportunity to join up for Chelsea's squad in the Club World Cup due to a very prolonged and exhausting transfer saga. Crucial stage for you to understand the system. Get a bit more time to learn under the manager, the players, and get ready for the expectations. So in that sense, he was already playing catch-up before he even kicked the ball for us. Now, we saw some early signs and flashes of his promise in pre-season, especially against Leverkusen and AC Milan, and he kind of dazzled with his close control. And he was getting comparisons, especially for myself, to a young Robinho, especially when Gittens is busting out the step-overs for fun. The balance, the quick feet, the dynamism, the stop-start accelerations, the close control. This was the true early glimpse at his potential that he has. But potential isn't enough by itself, and now he's finding things a bit difficult because he's playing catch-up whilst getting used to a new environment, whilst getting up to speed with the pace of the Premier League. This ain't the Bundesliga. You get closed down for fun. We're seeing better players like Florian Wirtz struggling to get used to the tempo increase and the new way of playing and moving. It tends to be a common pattern that you see from Bundesliga players transitioning from that league to the Premier League. So at the moment, his current place in the squad is probably the understudy to Garnacho, who's probably ahead of him. And then you have players like Estevao and Neto, who are both ahead of Garnacho and Gittens. But some of you might be thinking, well, listen, Nini, that's part of the game, right? You're never going to have it that easy. You have to show what you can do under adversity. You got to show what you're about when things are going against you. I think that's fair. But I also think what's also fair is having patience and giving time, because this season he's only made 2 starts. One of those starts was against Brentford. The other start was on the right wing against Lincoln City. He's made 3 appearances off the bench and made 3 appearances starting. But his combined minutes is literally under 3 games. 244 minutes combined, spread across 6 cameo appearances, yeah? So actually, the game time he's been given isn't enough to have strong, concrete opinions that justify really harsh criticism. You can criticize him not being up to speed, but it can't go beyond that until we've seen him get at least 5 starts in the league and acclimatise more. And for me, this is where Gittens now needs 2 things. Nothing crazy, nothing unique, just 2 simple principles, and that is patience and confidence. He needs patience because at the moment it's quite obvious that he's not fully in sync with the rest of his teammates. And I think that's been evident in his last 2 games. Against Brentford, the attacking game plan for that game was to have Gittens act as our wide outlet. We would overload play down the right sides, with the plan being to free him to use his pace in behind to hit Brentford in behind at the right times to catch and break their defensive line. But on many occasions, Gittens was either timing his runs too poorly or too slow, or was on the end of poor receiving service. And that was why he got hooked off in the second half. And in his last game against Benfica, on a few occasions where he was brought on to lead the counter-attack, so he had more space to carry the ball and attack his man, the final actions were disappointing. And you could see that he didn't know quite when to release the ball to a striker or play the cutback cross inside the box, and he was regularly carrying the ball into traffic. Combine that with the fact that he hasn't mastered getting used to Maresca's setup. The pace, the tempo of the league, getting confidence from his teammates. As I said, at this stage of his career, he needs confidence to really express himself. When you're an attacking player, you need to gain confidence first at this early development stage in mastering your game. Feeling the confidence in terms of how you get used to the rhythm of the league, to know when to take your man on inside or outside, that takes a few games. That won't happen overnight. And I think another way where Gittens can get some confidence is from the fan base. Now, I understand where the apathy comes from, but we can't let the players, especially these young players, constantly become the scapegoat to that apathy. I don't think that's right. If you're Gittens and you make a mistake and you're hearing groans from all these 60-plus-year-olds in the stadium, how's that going to give you confidence to perform the next offensive action? You'll be in your heads. You'll start doubting yourself. And for myself, when I've seen so many other players be in the same exact position as him beforehand, with the famous example being Mudryk, where realistically, he's only shown glimpses, and it wasn't until the Maresca season last season, before his ban, that he was starting to showcase that his brain was starting to clock what was expected from him. Funnily enough, there are similarities with both players. At Shakhtar, Mudryk was also protected by the team, where he was the final action player. For every 10 offensive actions, let's say that's 10 dribbles, he'd probably pull off maybe 5. From those 5, 2 would be all right, but 3 would be amazing and would change the game. And that's how he played, to have that type of freedom. And with that freedom, that's where he found his confidence. But the difference is, as Gittens is now learning, when you go up to another level, when you have to play in a structure, things are a bit different. What's expected from you and your game has to adapt, has to grow. And for players like this at that stage, it's too much for them instantly to clock things overnight. If Gittens was that type of winger that could also play as an attacking mid, it would be different contexts, because those types of players in particular, like Esteval, they can only do that because the IQ and the all-round game is levels. It's more than just running at your man and having a bit of pace. But for Gittens, who is that traditional inside forward, wide outlet player, he needs to find the confidence in his game first before he starts to make sense of the system and what's expected from him. And I think at some point, us as a fan base, we got to get behind these guys a bit. It's a different era now. These guys are more tapped into what's happening online. You can't escape it. We got to be honest. I say this because I think with his raw abilities and outlet, there's a player in him. I thought personally he would kind of struggle a bit. I didn't think he'd be ready to smash out the park straight away. Personally, I would have loved the idea if we had an experienced left winger and him in behind instead of 2 youngers finding it out. But we can't do nothing about that now. We're in the thick of it. But for a player that is reportedly quite reserved and a bit shy, he needs a bit of time to find himself. And I think we should afford him some grace, because I'm telling you, you haven't seen everything that Gittens can offer. And if we get it right, which we have to do at one point, we could see a really interesting player at this football club. So that's everything I got to say on Jamie Gittens. Leave your thoughts and opinions below. How do you feel about him? Have you seen enough to be able to write him off? Or do you feel like the fan base needs to get off his back a bit and give this guy some breathing room and space? Let us know what you thought on this debate, my friends, and I'll catch you guys tomorrow. Love. Cool.